The Zephyrian High Command had miscalculated before, but never on this scale. Admiral Kextar flexed his forearms as he surveyed the tactical display aboard the flagship Sovereign's Wrath. 2,000 vessels strong, the combined armada of 7 galactic civilizations hung in formation around the small, unremarkable human cargo freighter designated Lucky Strike. The ship looked pathetic compared to the sleek dreadnoughts and battle cruisers that surrounded it, a battered hull with mismatched plating, and engine signatures that suggested it was held together by little more than hope and stubbornness. "This seems excessive," muttered Commander Velthak, her crystalline features reflecting the bridge's amber lighting. One human vessel against the largest military force ever assembled in this sector. Kextar's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his species. The humans have a saying, "Better safe than sorry." We learned it from their diplomatic archives before we severed all communications. 3 months ago, humanity had committed the unforgivable sin of refusing to surrender their colony worlds to the Galactic Consortium's expansion initiative. Their diplomats had been polite but firm, their military attachés calm but resolute. When the consortium's member races had demanded compliance, the human ambassador had simply said, "No, thank you." The Lucky Strike had been fleeing toward the outer rim when long-range sensors detected it. A single human ship, alone and apparently defenseless. The perfect opportunity to send a message to the rest of their stubborn species. "Hail them," Kextar commanded. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the bridge of the human vessel. The figure seated in the captain's chair appeared unremarkable, middle-aged, with graying hair and laugh lines around his eyes. He wore a simple jumpsuit and held a steaming mug in his hands. "Well, hello there," the human said, taking a sip from his cup. "That's quite the welcoming committee you've brought. I'm Captain Marcus Chen of the independent freighter Lucky Strike. How can I help you folks today?" Kextar leaned forward. "Human vessel, you are surrounded by the combined fleets of 7 civilized worlds. Surrender immediately and your death will be swift." Captain Chen set down his mug and scratched his chin thoughtfully. 7 worlds, you say? That's impressive. Though I have to ask all this for little old me. I'm flattered, really, but don't you think it's a bit much? "Your species has defied the natural order," Kextar snarled. "This demonstration will serve as a warning to your colonies about the futility of resistance." "I see." Chen stood up and walked to what appeared to be a weapons console, his movements unhurried. "Well, Admiral, it is Admiral, isn't it? I appreciate you taking the time to explain your position. Really, I do, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to decline your generous offer of swift death." Velthak's sensors indicated that the human ship was powering up its weapon systems, though the readings made no sense. The energy signatures were unlike anything in their databases. "Captain," she whispered to Kextar, "their power output is unusual." Kextar dismissed her concern with a wave. One ship, no matter how advanced, could not stand against 2,000. "Human, you have 10 seconds to reconsider before we reduce your vessel to atomic particles." Chen's smile was sad but determined. "You know what your mistake was, Admiral? You assumed we were running away." The human captain pressed a series of controls and every sensor on every ship in the Armada began screaming warnings simultaneously. "What in the 7 hells?" Kextar began. The Lucky Strike didn't transform so much as reveal what it had always been. The battered freighter hull split apart like flower petals, revealing a ship that should not have existed. Sleek, angular, and humming with energy patterns that violated several fundamental laws of physics. It was clearly the product of a civilization that had been very, very busy during their brief time among the stars. "Allow me to introduce the retaliation," Chen said, his voice now carrying the weight of absolute authority. "She's what we call a wolf in sheep's clothing. We've been wondering when someone would give us an excuse to field test her. The ship's weapon systems came online, and Velthak's sensors registered energy readings that should have been impossible. Weapons that bent space-time, shields that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and engines that seemed to draw power from the quantum vacuum itself. "This is impossible," Kextar breathed. "Your species has barely been in space for 2 centuries. "That's true," Chen acknowledged. "But we're quick learners and we've had excellent teachers. Every species that ever attacked us, every piece of technology we've encountered, every tactic used against us, we studied it all. Adapted it, improved it, combined it in ways you never imagined. The first volley from the retaliation eliminated 300 ships in the span of a heartbeat. The weapons didn't simply destroy. They unraveled the target vessels at the molecular level, turning sophisticated warships into clouds of constituent atoms. You see, Chen continued conversationally as chaos erupted across the Armada's communications channels. Humanity has one defining characteristic that you failed to account for. We don't just fight, we learn from fighting. Every conflict teaches us something new about warfare, about technology, about ourselves. The second volley took out another 500 ships. Desperate fleet commanders ordered their vessels to scatter, but the retaliation moved like liquid lightning, its impossible drives carrying it through the formation, faster than targeting systems could track. And the beautiful thing about being underestimated, Chen said as his ship's weapon systems recycled for another barrage, is that your enemies never see the real threat until it's far too late. The remaining vessels tried to jump to hyperspace, but found their drives mysteriously non-functional. The retaliation had deployed some form of interdiction field that locked down the entire engagement zone. "Please," Kextar transmitted on an open channel. "We surrender. Call off your attack." Chen's expression softened with what might have been genuine sympathy. "I'm sorry, Admiral, but you made this personal the moment you decided to use genocide as a negotiating tactic. Besides, you've already seen too much." The final wave of weapons fire was almost beautiful in its precision. Each beam found its target with mathematical certainty, and in the space of 3 minutes, the greatest armada ever assembled in this sector of the galaxy was reduced to floating debris and the fading echoes of final transmissions. The retaliation hung alone in space, its hull shifting back into the innocuous form of the lucky strike. Captain Chen settled back into his chair and picked up his mug, which had somehow remained perfectly steady throughout the entire engagement. "Control, this is Strike 1, he said into his communications array. "Package delivered. The galaxy now knows what happens when you threaten human civilians. Recommend we proceed to Phase 2 of the demonstration." A voice crackled back through the speakers. "Understood. Strike 1. Please note that Strikes 2 through 999 are now moving to their assigned positions throughout Consortium space. Phase 2 is authorized." Chen took another sip of his coffee and gazed out at the debris field that had once been the pride of 7 civilizations. "You know," he mused to his empty bridge, "they really should have just accepted no for an answer." The stars watched silently as the lucky strike engaged its drives and disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind only wreckage and the beginning of a legend that would reshape the political landscape of the galaxy forever. In the years that followed, when young beings of various species asked their elders why humanity was given such a wide berth in galactic affairs, the answer was always the same. Because they sent an armada to destroy a single human ship, and it didn't end well for the galaxy.